Okay, I'm assuming this is recording. So, good afternoon. It is October 24, 2023. And I just wanted to bring a couple things to your attention. You're probably aware of the hot topic. If you're not already, maybe you should be. The hot topic in Centralia regarding the rezoning of a few hotels, the possible rezoning from permanent supportive housing to um, market rate housing. It's going on right now in the Centralia City Council. So just wanted to bring the facts to you, and I'm going to direct you to a couple of different things. One being a Let's Talk About It rebroadcast from yesterday, and then also Centralia City Council meeting from last Tuesday. There's also a meeting tonight at 7 p.m. At the Centralia City Hall that you'll want to go to if you care about your city. So without any further ado, I'll transition to this flyer. Um, this flyer, I'm just gonna let you read it. And as I introduce the next topic, um, I'm going to play a KELA. Let's talk about it. Rebroadcast here about the issue.
Centralia City Council approved a proposed 86-unit housing development on 15 acres called Kresge Landing in South Centralia. And then in bizarre news, a Georgia man was hit with a $1.4 million
Okay, I'm going to go forward a little bit here.
Oh, thank you, Max Vote, for calling. And I'd love to talk about the gossip of what's going on. Number is 330-5352, call or text. And my light question, what is a new skill you learned later in life? And let's get to the phones. Good morning, you're on the air with me. What would you like to talk about?
Is this me?
Yes, it is.
All right, this is City Councilor Max Vote calling.
Oh, thank you, Max Vote, for calling. I had talked a little bit about a recent decision that the council made, and so tell me what's on your mind on that particular one. It had to do with the assisted living, or no, the what do they call that housing?
Permanent supportive housing.
Permanent supportive housing. So give me the backstory on it.
So this is a very all-impacting decision that was made very quickly on City Council with not a whole lot of weeks' notice. There was really no public there that understood all the issues, and we're going to vote on again tomorrow night. It's going to change the city. It can have a large impact on our city, and I want people to know what this is because the public needs to be informed. And we seem to be rushing through this, which I never trust government whenever we rush to get something done. People need to hear about it. So here's the quickest way I can describe this.
Okay.
So Sage Investments, who is a developer out of Tacoma, bought the Oyo Hotel and Motel 6.
Okay.
And what they wanted to do, well, the zoning for that right now, excuse me, is for motels and something called permanent supportive housing.
Okay, and what? Okay, so the zoning for those areas pre-existing, regardless of anything, you could have motels there or permanent supportive housing.
That's correct. And actually, we have a buffer on permanent supportive housing, so there will only really be 2 in that area. So they came and planned to do that. They tried to find a property manager who would help them do that here. Nobody wanted to. They learned a lot about permanent supportive housing, how layers deep it is into government subsidies, and it's kind of complicated. And they decided a better use of this property would be something that they do in Tacoma and Fife, which I have gone to see personally myself, which is taking old motels that are full of crime and drugs and gangs and stuff, clearing them out and remodeling them into beautiful, tiny apartments for working people to live in, as we call it, market rate apartments. So whatever the market will bear, and there it's about $1,000 a month. They include utilities and internet and TV.
So just this is the way any apartment would work without any government controls on any of the elements.
Private.
Okay, so it's just basically just free market rate. Got it.
Yes, and what he does with these is fill them with working people who can afford about $1,000 a month, senior citizens on fixed income, and veterans who may have some subsidies, but he gets them in as well, and everybody loves having the veterans there because they kind of protect the whole place. So it's very well run. It's a wonderful opportunity for working people. Now, in our city here, it's the Oyo Hotel and Motel 6 combined create 426 rooms total.
Okay.
So now that the City Council voted to make sure this is only permanent supportive housing, one thing everybody needs to know about permanent supportive housing is how it is funded. It's funded through vouchers through the county, which also comes to the state. It's very complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And if you talk to the county now, we have maybe 17 to 20 that could go in that motel or one of those motels to fill permanent supportive housing.
Okay.
If there's some other possible vouchers or cross methods of getting people in there, it may be 50. I think that's a pretty solid, fairly good figure, but
and is that
sure.
Is that the federal ongoing grant, the Section 8 housing grant?
All kinds of different things.
Okay.
I can't even explain it because it's kind of complicated. But as far as vouchers actually getting the permanent supportive housing, we have, I think, 17 or 18, right?
Okay.
So that's 100. That's 50 rooms out of 213.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the other 160 going to come from? Who are they going to fill this with? Because we don't have that need right now, right? So
in our area.
In our area, meaning
right.
local people.
Right.
And, by the way, a nonprofit who runs any of these permanent supportive housing doesn't have to fill it with local people. There's no law that says they have
right.
that. They can fill it with whoever they want.
Right.
And I'm sure...
Because I know that there is a long waiting list for that federal subsidy.
Yes.
So there are hundreds, maybe thousands of people in the larger area that are waiting for their number to come up for a unit to be available. So there are people who are waiting to get a subsidized apartment.
Yeah, could be from Seattle, could be anywhere. So they will be filled from someplace. So here are my areas of concern. I have 3 or 4 areas of concern about this that I want to talk about. Just the general idea of in our gateway area, in our most important business area of Centralia, we're going to plop down between 426 and 213 and 426 people that don't work and don't produce income. They don't have jobs. Hopefully they can behave. But let me read the description of what permanent supportive housing is real quickly. It's admissions practices to use lower barriers to entry than would be typical for other subsidized or unsubsidized rental housing, especially related to rental history, criminal history, and personal behaviors. You cannot ask them about that. You do not know about that. We have no idea who they are.
Okay.
But they have to be let in, right? So that could be, 426 people that don't have jobs versus if we allowed the zoning change so they can do this, there would be 420, 426 maybe working people, seniors on fixed incomes, and veterans, which I just think is a better idea for this part of our town.
Right.
Now, the second concern I have is our major source of income for running cities is sales tax. The outlet malls and all of Harrison Avenue is a huge amount of sales tax that we produce.
Okay.
If this affects those businesses in any way negatively, we are in trouble. If we lose any of those major vendors in the outlet malls, it could be the end of Centralias' budget. I mean, it's very, very serious.
Okay.
So that's a concern I have. Another area of concern is the police. Now, I talked to the police chief, and he's not going to speak for or against this either way because they're staff and they don't do that. But I did ask him about, how the police are ready for this. And he said that it may look like we're close to fully staffing on paper, but we're not. We're down 5 patrols that are on the road. Somebody else for sick. There's people in training, won't be ready for a while, and we have another hire. And next year in 24, we could have 3 retiring police officers. So this is going to stretch the police department more than they already are right now.
Okay. So let me ask you this. The choices that are before you as a city council member are let this company proceed with the, what's it called, long-term?
It's multiple houses. It's called multifamily housing.
Okay, but I mean, they're already doing it. I drive by the Motel 6 regularly, and they've got a sign out, and they've remodeled all those things. They've turned them into apartments.
Yeah.
So we are going to get something. And what they started out making was the low-income subsidized housing.
Yeah, well, it had to be permanent supportive housing, which they thought they wanted to do.
Okay.
But they realized their model is much better because it does support, and this is the county figures they use to kind of say we need permanent supportive housing. These people are in the extremely low income to very low income bracket. If let's say these are $1,000 a month. Okay. And I've been qualifying people for houses for 40 years, Jamie, and apartments, and these are very low income people that could afford $1,000 a month.
Right. It is the gap area in housing. I mean, you kind of got this, you got to get either a full-on house at $250,000 or you got to get, really, really low end, someplace that you wouldn't be comfortable having your kids there and living.
That's right. And if we put working people in there, these are the people who would work at the outlet malls all along Harrison Avenue. Most of them don't have cars. There's not going to be a traffic issue. They walk or take the bus. Right. This is the perfect venue for them. But they shop in our stores and our businesses, and they produce sales tax, which we have to have.
Yeah.
It's very dangerous if we lose any money in sales tax. We are a city that's already strapped. We can't get a school levy passed. This is important that we have money. This is how you run a city.
Okay. So the question still is, before you as a council member, and you had the decision earlier, and you've got another vote tomorrow night, it sounds like, is shall we let this company either back out or complete very low-income housing, or shall we let this company switch from low-income housing to, let's say, medium low-income housing, but everybody's paying rent at whatever the market rate is?
It's not medium low housing. It's considered by the government extremely low and very low.
But on the second version, I mean, if they do the apartments that you're talking about,
the second version.
Yeah. Okay, how do you control that? How do you keep them from saying, you know what, these are really nice, we're going to go ahead and charge you $2,000 a month?
Well, it's market rate. These are 250 square foot apartments.
Okay.
They're motel rooms.
Okay.
So in Tacoma, they don't get more than $1,000 a month.
Okay.
See what I'm saying? Okay. So he's already invested, I think, $13 million in these two hotels, and he told me that when he finishes this project, if he can do it the way he wants to do it, that's investing $17.6 million in Centralia.
Mm-hmm. And if they don't get this ordinance, if they don't get this permission to put these apartments in a location where they're currently not allowed by the zoning codes, then what happens?
They're not going to sell. They will do permanent supportive housing.
Okay.
That's what they'll have to do.
So you're faced as a policymaker with, do you want only permanent supportive housing, or do you want low-income housing, but that's at market rate?
Right, and for working people. Now, I want to say this really clearly. I'm not against permanent supportive housing. This is not political. It's not Democrat. It's not Republican. It's not about conservatives or liberals. This is about what's best for our city. Reliable Enterprises does an excellent job with permanent supportive housing. They know how to do it.
They just opened something new, I believe. Yeah.
Yes, it's crawl, walk, run. They start with who we have, what we need, and build from there.
Right.
This would be overkill that we don't have, and filling our gateway where everybody comes in to see Centralia and decide if they like it or not. That could be a problem.
Okay. No, listen, I appreciate you clearing that up for us. Got thoughts on it? Give me a call. 330-5352. I'm going to take my break. I'm going to take a look at some texts, and we will get back after the break on Let's Talk About It. Give me a call.
Real Estate Marketing Group, formerly Pete Basie Realty, offers more service, more opportunity. As a proven leader in the industry, they're the company to represent your investment property. If you're looking to rent, buy, sell, or manage your property, Real Estate Marketing Group has you covered. They're located on Jackson Highway and at re-mgi.com. Real Estate Marketing Group is here for all of your real estate needs. Real Estate Marketing Group. They do more.
Hi, this is Jeff and Julie from Fairway Lanes.
Jeff and I met JSIC of Summit Funding at our bowling center. So when we fell in love with this community and it was time to relocate, we knew we would be calling Summit Funding.
They understand that everyone has a unique situation when buying a home.
He had already helped 2 of our employees get into their own homes. The Summit Funding team exceeded our expectations. It was a seamless experience with great communication from his whole team.
Thank you to Summit Funding for making our buying experience special and memorable.
Fall is here, but the deals are still hot during Lincoln Creek Lumber and Market Street Ace's Red Hot Buys going on now. October is Fire Safety Month. Buy 2 select fire safety items and get 1 free. Get fall savings on quality tools, paint, and household and outdoor supplies. Buy one of these quality Milwaukee tools and get one of these for free. Shop online or call for curbside pickup or delivery. Don't miss Lincoln Creek Lumber and Market Street Ace's Red Hot Buys going on now through October 31st.
Hi, this is Taylor with Toledo Tel. Did you know with the Toledo Tel mobile app, business calls can be made whether you're working from home or traveling abroad as if you were at the office. Our mobile app also keeps your personal numbers safe. And remember, with Toledo Tel, you're getting a premium phone system and premium customer service. We recognize the way of doing business is changing and will continue to change. We are here to keep our customers equipped. Contact us at 360-864-4552 or visit us at toledotel.com today.
Okay, and now back to business.
Listen on the air and online.
KELA.
Let's talk about it.
And we're back. This is Let's Talk About It. Just took a long call. Thank you for your patience. If you're waiting on the lines, from City Council member Max Vogt. And he was kind of describing what's going on with those two hotels, the Oyos and the Motel 6 that are getting renovated and turned into housing. So thought that was interesting and worth knowing.
They tried to find a property manager who would help them do that here. We don't have that need right now, right? So
well, in our area.
Okay, so sorry about the delay on that. So the next thing that I'm going to go to is actually from the City Council meeting from last Tuesday night. I believe it was 10/10/23. And so I'm going in about 2 hours, 15 minutes, when they started talking about the zoning changes. And this is the investor communicating with the City Council. So I'm just gonna cut to that right now.
Express.
Oh. So, with that said, my always intent is to provide high quality housing to people in need. And because of our housing crisis currently, we face a massive shortage for a missing middle class of people, working class, young professionals, students, people that are encumbered by roommates, family members that they are forced to live with, aunties and uncles, mom and dad. They want out of their situation. But there's not units that have been historically built because previously there was low cost of construction, low cost of labor. There wasn't as much cost to build these units. With the hotels that we can adapt and reuse, we've done this in many communities with full change of use permits that allow us to have multifamily and traditionally commercial zones. What we do is we take a higher and better use application of a project that was built at a different time with costs that were much lower than today. And we provide a beautifully renovated project with highly amenitized community feel that's focused on the residents' entertainment and enjoyment of the space. It's always located near transit centers, near points of access, places like restaurants and providers of services, and grocery stores and the like. And because of that, it allows for a very unique experience for residents that traditionally would have to have a vehicle to go to their place of employment or to the grocery store, and would traditionally have to pay in excess of what their desired attainable budget is, forcing them to have roommates often, getting into that 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom application. Single occupant housing is a really elegant solution to a problem that has developed over decades. And as we see one of the largest classes, 81 million nationally in millennials coming to market, we're having a serious problem where we cannot have attainable housing for them to be able to afford to live in. Now, these market rate apartments provide a really nice solution for that, for both young professionals and working class that are younger, and also aging residents on fixed income that are also limited by Social Security insufficiencies and the like. So given the times that we're in and inflation constraints, it's very difficult to find proper housing. It leads to homelessness and the problems that we experience today. So while permanent supportive housing provides a solution for that, given the C2 district is such that it's a prime part of the hub here in Centralia and has a lot of things to offer the community and a lot for our community to be built and enjoyed around, there's going to be, in the event that we are able to bring in market rate tenants, a lot of working folks that have liquidity and discretionary income to spend, particularly because they've maintained an attainable rate of living. You know, the people that we serve, you had talked a little bit about AMI previously in the evening. An average median income, it's very important that we serve those that are 0 to 30%. And in our other communities, we'll see 20, 30, 35% that are within that 0 to 30%. They're fixed income folks. And the folks that we love to support in particular are the Veterans Affairs, supportive housing. VASH provides great tenants that are subsidized. We provide housing for. Now they operate and maintain a lot of our assets. 0 to 30% is right where they are positioned, and we open up beyond that. The rest of the residents that typically we see are 80 to 110% of the average median income, and they're getting that next job. They're getting the experience. They're putting in their time, and they're getting to that next promotion. And this is a stepping stone. Our average tenancy timeline is 2 years for those market rate apartments, and they add to the community in more ways than I can explain, really. For what we've done in other municipalities, we've had massive criminal reduction. Now, one thing very consistent about these hotel districts is that when they were built in the 70s and 80s, they were beautiful and had a place. As they aged in place and deferred maintenance became a burden on ownership, there started to become a mentality of, let's have these people that are willing to stay here, pay cash, we'll look at our way, and we'll let the criminal contingent take hold of what this is and let that impact the community. And we see it with nuisance violations and high police call volume and the like. And with our ability to bring in really high quality renovations, converting these spaces to R2 dwellings as high of quality as any apartment unit would be, with brand new stainless steel appliances, cork countertops, etc. We're creating home environments that are efficient in nature, not big by any means, but they're close to everything. And they eliminate the need for a car sometimes and other expenses. We'll have less than 50% of our residents actually have a vehicle. It's the second largest expense for lower income folks, aside from their rent. So there's multiple things here that I think are net positive. And I have to apologize for my naivete in reference to the PSH. And I'm seeking the opportunity to do better for the city of Centralia, and to make it and create that vibrant community that I know that Harrison and Belmont are providing, can continue to provide. And I think that they're just really well knitted within the current zoning applications and the LBD next to the C2 and the outlet malls, and how that residential district and commercial district combines to form a really solid experience for the residents there. And I want to be certainly a net positive to that. I recognize that we're impacting revenue for hotels and taxation, and I have no qualms about understanding that there is going to be better hotels to come in the city of Centralia. As we take units off of line, developers pay attention. I have had several phone calls. We took 205 units off a line between the Oyo and the Motel 6. That is now a void. The other motels are packed, and they're not as nice as they could be. So now that we see La Quinta and other projects coming live potentially, there's revenue that's going to make up and provide surplus for what has previously been experienced as the budget that participates in the community events that I don't want to see going away, and I want to add to. And we employ a community outreach director. Her name's Whitney Wilkins. She's up in Tacoma doing good work on Hosmer District right now, but we'd love to have her a part of the presence of the community and participate. We're doing a trunk or treat. We're doing a lot of things that we add to value of the community so that we can create more than just a profiteering apartment owner that comes in, gets it done, sells it off, and moves on. Now, there's a profit motive here by all means. My wife and I, when we started, we were trying to just simply solve for everyone's problems, which is how do you afford to live here and also have a family and have time with that family. And so we sought real estate as an avenue to be able to provide that freedom, and it has. And it has provided much more than that to me, which is the gratification that comes from helping others that need it, that are not often counted and are often discounted and forced to live in conditions that are subpar. So, with older establishments like the Oyo, like the Motel 6, they deserve rehabilitation. And I think that providing market rate housing is the best way to impact the community in a positive light. And this zone text change is going to allow us to do that. So I appreciate the time and hearing me out. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Councilor Vogt.
So I want to speak about this because I've been doing a lot of research on this the last couple of weeks. When I first heard about this, I hadn't heard about the concept, and I was very excited about it as a real estate professional because I know this is a missing piece of our real estate picture. The Economic Alliance hosted Matthew Gardner, who is the chief economist for Windermere, last week, and he came and spoke specifically about Lewis County and how it's structured. And one of these things he said is Lewis County is a single family home community. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's missing a lot of pieces that in order for it to grow and in order for it to serve the population, it has to expand the creativity of how they do housing. So when I heard about this, I thought, this is wonderful. It almost sounds too good to be true, so I wanted to check it out. So for the counselors that have this package with the pictures of the units and what they're doing, I wanted to make sure this was real because I thought this is really beautiful. So I took a field trip up there to meet Ross and see different units, and Councilor Garabai and Councilor Cameron went with me as well. And not only did it meet exactly what the pictures have, but it exceeded my expectations of what this community could be. And what's interesting is there's things you cannot see in this picture that have such a value to our city and the community. I can tell you about it, but until you visit it, you don't know what that is. And that is the value of community. It actually is a community. So I visited the ones they're doing in the Hosmer yes. district, in which they took at least 2 hotels in a very high crime rate motel area where there's lots of drug deals. And once that element kind of comes in, you can't rent to other people, and it gets worse and worse and worse. So they moved everybody out of there, and they're remodeling these apartments. They're beautiful, exactly what you see in these pictures. They have a community center, which has couches and TVs and maybe a pool table. There's a beautiful gym, beautiful laundry room. They have a dog park outside. The whole thing is privacy fenced with a gated entry, so everybody who lives there feels secure. There's young people, young professionals who are just starting out who couldn't afford a house. There are seniors, lots of seniors, and there are also veterans. You might want to talk about that a little bit. And the community likes the veterans because they kind of protect the place.
Yeah.
So what you don't see in the pictures is the value of community that lots of single people need. And being a for-profit, privately owned unit, they can control who lives there, a maximum of 2 people. There's rules and behavioral codes and that kind of stuff. It's very secure. Perhaps a single mother and a daughter could live there. This is a need that we have, like Emil was saying. There's a lot of 1 and 2 person households. And I know a lot of these people personally, some of my staff and their relatives who are young and they're working, but they can't afford a big apartment or a house. And I can see this need being fulfilled. Also, these are not going to go back to motels, so we're not going to lose any hotel motel tax on these. And I like the variety of having permanent supportive housing in this zone, as well as motels, and as well as these market rate apartments. And the idea I had with this is to have allow this to happen with a buffer of 1,500 feet, like permanent supportive housing for these. So it would limit the amount of these, would limit the amount of permanent supportive housing, but unlimited amount of hotels and motels, which we want. But I don't think in the state of our hotels now, they're going to be continuing as motels or hotels. What's going to happen is new developments are going to come in, and we're hearing about other ones that are coming in, other possible hotels, newer ones that have higher standards, so the crime issue isn't going to be there. So I love this project. I think it's really exciting. I love the idea that there will be filled with working people, as well as seniors on limited income, and as well as veterans who may have some kind of assistance as well.
Yes.
It's in a great area for walkability. There wasn't a lot of cars in the very large parking lot you have. And I talked to the residents. They were very appreciative that this existed, and they loved the idea of the community aspect of it, and the cost, of course, and how you have a low market rate rent price with a package that includes everything, internet, TV, utilities, all in one price that a person can afford. So I'm very excited, and I hope we can make this work because I think it would be a new addition to our city. And as far as from the street, they look really nice, beautifully remodeled. It would bring pride to that area of town that we've had some problems with those motels, as well as still leave plenty of room for more motels and permanent supportive housing as well. So I was very pleased to do this research, and I really appreciate what you guys are doing. I'm very impressed with how you've improved the neighborhoods and you reduce crime and you fulfill a whole need of a group of people, low-income people that are kind of being ignored, working people that are in between. You know, they're working, they may be young, but they still can't move out of their parents' house.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So
I'm going to interrupt for a moment. I'd like to focus this part on questions for Mr. Hubbard, then move to public comment, and then come back to council discussion where we might share our perspectives and point of view. So if we could focus questions directed for Mr. Hubbard. Are there other questions, Council or Mayor Pro Tem McGee?
How long do you plan to own these units?
A minimum 5 years.
Okay, and then you'll hopefully sell them off to somebody else that'll run something there.
Yeah, that is generally speaking the goal.
Okay. And then have you reached out to any of the other hotels in that area? Like, if you're willing to share that.
Certainly, yes. I've spoken with all the hotel owners in the district.
Okay.
There's a limit to potential. You know, what I mean by that is that there's only so many units that a market is willing to take on and to be successful with. You know, there needs to be a diversity of units. As a developer, as a landlord, I'm cognizant of saturation levels, and so while what we've taken on here today is sufficient, I don't believe it would be appropriate to have all of the hotels in that region or that district as apartments, nor would I think that any fair market person would think it would.
Thank you.
What will be the cost of the rent?
It varies. It'd be $950 base, and then there's slight variation in room size and orientation that could make it up to $975. And then the utility and technology build back is $150 per unit to $175 per unit. Just depends on the property. And that, as you had mentioned, that includes water, sewer, garbage, high-speed internet, cable, and electricity, as well as secure parking. We do automated gated entries. You've got this nice little pad that you can put in your code, takes a picture of who's out there so you can see it on your phone as a resident, let that person in or not. We keep active traffic. As a result of that, we monitor who's coming and going for the most part, just to understand if there are any issues that are arising while people are coming and going, so that we can hold accountable those individuals that are causing any issue.
I have a few questions. First question is, if we were not to approve this and you were still required to provide permanent supportive housing, what audience or demographic would you be seeking to serve with PSH?
So primarily those that are unable to obtain traditional housing are those that are best served by PSH. Those are folks that are on the brink or homeless and have history, whether that's felony history or criminal evictions or any like. There's a lot of things that can be normally a disqualifier that this program specifically allows. Mm-hmm. The residence's stay is not determinable. They can stay as long as they like. And then, of course, we cannot remove them for any conventional reason. So it's a difficult situation to try to navigate because I'm held to a standard in that case that I'm not familiar with navigating. So I'd have to rely on professionals to assist in that. Mm-hmm. We'd be using third-party property management. Unfortunately, TJ Geyer, who runs about 5,000 units in Lewis County, dropped me because he just didn't feel he could provide the level for PSH required. So I had to go with another larger firm, see how it goes.
And did you know what PSH was when you purchased the properties?
Yeah, I did. I was naive to the exact rules in which we were allowed to do various things like market or deny or accept tenants.
Okay, and I heard, I don't know if this is true, that somebody from your company called for information about people on our coordinated entry list because you wanted to do background checks on them.
Not familiar.
Okay, that's a concern because it's a low barrier approach.
Okay.
If we were to convert to market rate, I wanted to ask a couple questions. And in the packet, I believe the Tucson property is shown.
Yes.
How long did you own the Tucson property?
Only 2.5 years.
You sure it wasn't 19 months?
It may have been 19 months.
I think it was 19 months.
2019 to 2021.
And
in February of 2019 through November of 2021.
Okay.
And that was to give a little history and context, that was very early in my investing career as I had expanded working with other investors. So I was very much invited along, or rather I invited myself, and I ended up participating in such a way where I was way beyond my initial role.
Okay.
And so I was part of a syndication group called the Maroda Group, which has nothing to do with my current business, but they did operate businesses. So they were simply buying, converting, or buying and value add traditional apartment communities. At the time, there had been a crisis in leadership where the person that was operating that business, the Maroda Group, had a big problem at home, and she needed to take a step back. And I was there to offer my time. And as a co-partner in that, we were deliberate on a mission, and that mission was to create a return for our limited partners, of which there were 86. And so we created a large return for them, and that was the intention of that project.
So the mission was to return the investment on your investors.
Yeah.
And what was the rent percent increase from acquisition to sale?
That was large, very large. I don't recall exactly. Yeah, and I think contextually, I completely understand your point.
Well, let me make a couple more points before you respond, because I'm very concerned about this. I believe you also have a property in Lakewood called Clover Creek.
I had, yes.
You had, right? Because you sold it.
Yes.
Again, I think, well, this one's showing 19 months, so it may be the Tucson property was longer. But this shows that the percent increase in rent in 19 months was 147%.
Most certainly, yes.
So if my rent increased 147% in 19 months, I'd be priced out of where I live.
Yes, ma'am.
And you say that you come in and want to help people who are normally disregarded and maybe struggling to get on their feet. But I wonder what happens to folks when they are at one of your properties and all of a sudden are priced out of living there. And let's talk about Centralias property that you owned. How long did you own that one?
2018 through 2021.
19 to 22, about 34 months. And do you know what the percent increase in rent was in that amount of time?
I don't recall.
62.63%. And this is all information on your website because your primary goal is profit, which as a business owner, I respect. However, I don't want to confuse a sense of care for our community with your business model, which is clearly about profit. And I'm concerned that if we were to convert to fair market rate rental, the folks that we're trying to serve would all of a sudden be priced out.
Yes, ma'am. I absolutely agree with your context and what you saw on our marketing for specific investors. It is driven to incentivize people to invest with us. And my history has been unbridled capitalism, and I have grown a lot from the time that I began to the time as I exist now. In respect to how things have changed, I went from doing individual transactions, very transactional, where I would hold a property for as little amount of time as possible so I could gain as large a return as possible. And it became very popular, and I was able to get funds that would otherwise not be available in order to purchase these properties and commit to these business plans. In 2020, I started a business called Sage Investment Group, and it is designed to be a long-term vehicle. And it builds and develops housing primarily out of disrepair. Many of those properties that you're referencing, like Clover Creek, were previously fire damaged and not occupied on many levels, and had subpar, at best, living circumstances for their residents with pests and the like. And so when we look to invest in a property, we look to improve it and make it in its best use and provide the highest quality of housing that's available. It doesn't mean that we increase the rates of rents draconiously. It means that we have individuals that are living in really poor conditions that I cannot continue to allow them to live in, which doesn't mean that we throw them out. It means that we provide them service and opportunity to make change. And as we do not renew their lease, we do improve the unit, which allows us to increase the rate of rent that the unit fetches, which makes for a nice marketing headline. With our current business infrastructure, we are built to hold for a long term. Our investors are locked into equity that is invested for 10 years. And that is a result of a lot of change in my mentality, becoming a dad, understanding the differences in what means, what the priorities of my life are, what the priorities on the impact that I have on other people's lives are. And I think that hotel conversions is just a really great way of having a very low impact on residents while improving a community, offering high quality housing, and being able to do so at a very attainable rate without increases in rates at all. These properties were previously rented on a monthly basis, playing shadow games or whatever you want to call it, with residents that didn't have kitchens, that live in squalor, that are bug bitten and rat infested. And it is all very real. And it breaks my heart. And these folks are lost because they don't have anywhere to go that allows them, with their eviction history, their continuous drug use, or anything else that is just, kind of lawless in nature.
But the price that you're offering will not serve those individuals. If you were to bring it in at $1,000+ a month, and then see, let's go low, a 40% rate increase, which is very low based on your own reporting. That's going to bump. $1,000 a month is already 100% of our AMI. So then if you increase it over a couple of years, 40% or more, then we're now serving with those places people who are at 120 or 130% or higher AMI.
Sure.
So the folks that were there have nowhere to live.
Understood. Yeah, and I think previously, so the units that we're talking about here that are going to be offered $1,000 per month, they're not going to have increases of 40%. The market wouldn't bear it. Their units are designed to be efficiency units, and they're met with a market rate of rent that is inescapable.
So all of these other projects were completely different than what you're doing here?
Yeah, well, in a way, because they were previously not, these properties are not occupied, these hotels that we convert. So when we're taking them over, I mean, we could make the argument that we're decreasing the amount of money that people are paying on a monthly basis. Folks that were paying without kitchens was $1,700. At the OYO, we found residents that were on a silver alert that we engaged with Salvation Army to bring them back to their home in Bothell. I mean, there is atrocity that is committed here that is far greater than me improving units from a very low quality condition to a high quality condition and the difference in rate that they fetch. But I am not imposing high rental rates on individuals or raising it year over year because it's not a sustainable business practice. We would just do an inflation-based raise on rental rates, 3 to 5% year over year. So what you can see now, $950 to $975, it's not going to adjust much. It's only going to adjust based upon the dollar devaluing, inflation occurring.
Well, I don't understand why it wouldn't adjust much based on your previous history. That's a diametric diversion. But I also want to mention that we're not talking about leaving the hotels as are. We're talking about should they be PSH, which is managed case management for specific services, which I think is a very good model. It's a proven model, or fair market rentals. And to Councilor Vogt's point, fair market rentals have a place in our community, but these are not going to address our low income housing needs. And I want all of us to understand that if we approve this, we are providing housing for 120% higher AMI, not low income housing.
I have data that I can provide that would directly eliminate that concern. I have got to contextualize it for you in such a way that those previous apartments that we're talking about had, devastating conditions and were artificially low in rate.
You just described ours as having devastating conditions.
Yeah, I mean, that is the case. However, the main difference, and what I think is the missing piece, is that those units previously were rented at, say, $700 a month or something in Lakewood, and then I charged $1,000. That's a large increase as a percentage. They just represent something very different. So here, we're taking a vacant hotel unit and creating a residential unit, and that residential unit value is market rate. So $950, $975 for this area is right on par for a efficiency studio unit that is fully renovated with these types of amenities and location access. So it's just such a different context, and that is used as marketing and marketing only. But when we are looking at these properties, I would not describe us increasing the rates of rent. I would describe us as simply offering market rate housing. And the market rate doesn't change dramatically year over year. And on these units that you had brought up from our website, they were in need of a lot of repair and not in good shape. And so they had fetched a certain rate as what they were. And then when we didn't renew leases, and those folks had moved out and found other housing, we provide services to help them do that. We simply renovate to a current market rate standard. So some units in some cities and locations like to have quartz and stainless steel, and in some there's not that required, and so they're white appliances and maybe vinyl or laminate. These subtle differences make up what the market rate rent is, and so when we're charging market rate, now with these hotels as apartments, we don't have large increases because we would have non-renewal, and then we would have an empty property. And in order to be successful, we have to have a 90+% property, and we have to maintain market rate in order to attract residents to stay.
Okay, I'm going to let other counselors ask questions if they have it, but I will say it sounds a little bit like on your website for investors, you'll show the profit margin, and talking to counsel, you'll show the care and compassion. It doesn't sound consistent.
I can completely understand that perspective, and I think that it is reasonable to come to that conclusion. And our website is very much built for one thing. It doesn't represent all of who we are or what we are, but it does provide our investors satisfaction, knowing that they're going to have a return. And
are there other
provides
questions?
historical context for that.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Could you tell us, so it sounded like, and I want to have some clarification, that you do subsidized housing. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we work with the Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing organization called HIN, Aunt Mary's Place, Leah's Place. They're all different programs that offer subsidy to their residents or approved tenants that they vet. And then we work with those organizations to say, well, here are available units.
So you'd be willing to work with our Salvation Army, Gather Church, and any other nonprofit to help someone that's homeless have a nice place to live?
Most certainly. Between 30 and 40% of our communities are serving subsidized housing.
Would you like to explain what other amenities that you offer in these? I know I've seen them firsthand, but it might be a benefit to the community to know that people are not just in a tiny apartment. There's other amenities available.
Yeah, and because there are small units, we offer common area space. For the outside, we'll make a big game courtyard. So if you envision the Oyo, you see the pool that's covered up. Imagine that as just a very open space with the gaming, cornhole, permanent games, things like that. Dog parks are very common. We do a lot of dog parks. We'd like to have dog wash stations for the pets. We have 2 pet limit, 35 pounds or less. And then, of course, we have a pool, typically pool table, ping pong inside. In our common areas, we'll do arcades, pinball, and of course, seating areas and lounges. Outside, I forgot to mention barbecue center. So, an area for seating a gazebo for a smoking area far off in the corner of the parking lot somewhere. And then our biggest amenity package is our, since we're built as hotels, we have water, sewer, garbage, electric, cable, and internet all provided to every single unit without submeters. And that allows for us to provide an extension of value to our residents that don't have to apply for utilities and pay deposits and have soft credit checks. And they don't have to experience inflation increases or anything other than just once a year, their bill is going to adjust based upon the rate of inflation and the increase on the rate. So all of those amenities combined is what we offer for people.
Is that bike and storage space?
Yes, bike space is underneath stairwells. So you have bike racks. And then we'll have an Amazon locker package for deliveries. Storage space, if we have the room, we often go to the mechanical warehouse or storage areas that were previously used for maintenance of the hotels and build the 4x10s that you commonly see in condos or apartment settings for optional use by the residents.
Other questions?
So what are your leases? Or 6 months or a year?
They're 12-month leases.
So nobody's going to stay there like overnight or night by night or something?
Oh, no. There are no short-term leases. Okay.
All right. If there's no other questions from council, then I'm going to open up for public comment. I think we've got some written comment, and then we'll come right back to you.
We have written comment and one other person signed up too. Written comment is from Captain Jin Pak. She says, I am writing to express my strong opposition to the proposed agenda item regarding the rezoning of the C2 zone in Centralia, particularly the plan to allow residential use and high-density housing. I firmly believe that such a decision would not be in the best interest of our community. Centralia, like many communities, faces challenges related to housing affordability and homelessness. However, I believe that permanent supportive housing, transitional housing, and hotels as currently permitted in the C2 zone have their own distinct and valuable roles to play in addressing these issues. Rezoning this area to include high-density housing could have adverse consequences, and here are some of my reasons for opposition. Centralia has a unique identity as a historical and family-oriented city. Introducing high-density housing into this area may change the character of the community and affect the quality of life for its residents. This allows for uncontrolled access to our community, whereas permanent supportive housing and transitional housing lends itself to the prioritization of Lewis County residents through the coordinated entry system. An influx of residents can strain local services such as schools, healthcare facilities, and public safety services. It is important to ensure that our community resources can adequately support any proposed changes. By allowing the originally proposed use of these properties, we are including existing households which are already in the community and would not cause undue hardship to the already existing systems, but allow them to be bolstered by having Centralia residents the opportunity to pour back into the community that they belong. In considering the benefits of permanent supportive housing, it is crucial to consider the fair market rent versus the area median income. A clear analysis should be conducted to understand whether the proposed rezoning aligns with the needs of our community. I would like to request that the City Council consider alternative solutions to address the housing crisis and homelessness issue in Centralia. Rather than high-density housing, we should explore ways to promote affordable housing initiatives that align with the unique character of our city. This may include incentives for developers to build affordable housing, partnerships with nonprofit organizations, and targeted programs to assist low-income residents. I would be remiss if I did not say that Salvation Army's response to the illegal eviction of the residents who were residing at the OYO was challenging at best. While the OYO was not a perfect solution, it filled a very specific need and gap that Centralia has in regard to housing availability. The promise of the developers to provide permanent supportive housing, in my opinion, was used as a guise to step into a hurting community and further cause harm by changing the terms to now profit off of our community. Throughout the whole process, there have been interactions that would lead me to believe that they did not have the best interest of the community and was never intended to help the community by utilizing the property as it was promised, but rather to profit off of the broken promises. In conclusion, I urge the City Council to carefully reconsider the proposed rezoning of the C2 zone while addressing homelessness and housing affordability is of utmost importance. I believe that allowing residential use in high-density housing in this area may not be the best solution for Centralia. I hope you will take these concerns into account as you deliberate on this matter. We have Patty Howard of Centralia.
Welcome, Ms. Howard.
Deep breath. We've been here for a minute, right? Woo! Good evening, Mayor and City Councilors. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. I am here to speak about the proposed change in the C2 zoning, specifically.
Could you just mention your name and
Patty
city?
Howard, sorry. I'm with Gather Church in particular.
City of residence?
My city of residence is Shanks. Thank you. Yeah. I am here to talk about the proposed change in C2 zoning, specifically with Motel 6, because that's the one we've heard the most about and the one that's the furthest along in the renovation process. But I want to start by describing some of the phone calls I've responded to in the last 2 weeks. When somebody calls the Gather main line and leaves a voicemail, those all go to me. And so this is what I have heard, is a portion of what I've heard in the last 2 weeks. 2 women who received notices that the places they were living had been condemned. The first one, the landlord refused to even speak to the woman. And the second one, the landlord said, "That's okay, I'm just going to tear it down." Within 24 hours, these women and their children were out on the streets with absolutely nowhere to go. I also received a call from a woman with 3 small children. She'd been couch surfing and she was pretty much out of couches. She had nowhere to go and was going to be living in her car. She had saved up money for 1 motel night so they could have a shower, but she was back in her car. I talked to the friend of a disabled woman who lived in a trailer that had burned to the ground. This woman has major medical problems and nowhere to go. I also talked with a woman who has multiple health concerns. She's living in an unhealthy environment, but she cannot afford to move anywhere else. I've also had another 8 to 10 people seeking motel nights. People call us when they want a motel voucher, which actually isn't a thing. We use our church benevolence funds when we have them, sometimes to help people with a night in a motel for particular reasons. But when one night is not going to help somebody's situation in particular, we try to mitigate those circumstances with some other way. But when people call, even if we can't help them, I talk to them. I hear their stories, I listen to them, and I seek to give them encouragement in what probably feels like an impossible circumstance. I hear the same story over and over and over again. People have little to no income, they have no savings, they have unstable transportation or no transportation. They live in a car that doesn't move. They have physical, mental disabilities, substance use disorder, and general hopelessness because their situation seems insurmountable. Those are the people I talk to every single week. Most of these folks would probably qualify for permanent supportive housing based on the requirements. Many people who use our night-by-night shelter would qualify for permanent supportive housing. The Motel 6 property was sold with the purported intent of turning it into permanent supportive housing. It was purchased as a future site or as a future permanent supportive housing site by an investment group that, as far as I can tell, creates apartment buildings for profit. I looked on their website today and you've heard plenty, and so I certainly don't have to rehash anything. And I understand that the move was naive, but the naivete on the part of the purchaser, I do not believe is enough of a reason to, to really hurt the people of our community. I guess that's what I would say. And being naive or whatever is not a reason to rezone this area. And as I said before, we have people who desperately need permanent supportive housing. Caring for our community means meeting the needs of the people in our community. An increase in permanent supportive housing means an increase in opportunities for people who are usually overlooked and undersupported. Max, I think you mentioned that community and security, you were impressed by those things when you went to visit. The folks I've just talked about desperately need both community and security. I don't know why we would reserve those things for people only in middle income. And TJ Geyer is a property management company. We need a case management company. We need an organization that will actually case manage these folks. I've heard people say that we shouldn't welcome any more of this kind of housing to Centralia because it will keep us from being a thriving community. And I would say that the opposite is true. Thriving communities take care of their most vulnerable citizens, and taking care of our most vulnerable citizens will enable us to thrive. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Norm Chapman. I'm a resident of the city of Centralia, and I'm also on the Planning Commission. And just for the record, being a volunteer on the Planning Commission, I don't get a salary, I don't get a stipend, or I don't get any benefits. But what I do get is to be able to look at topics like this from a 30,000-foot perspective. And when HB 1220 came out, where it's mandating that city cannot prevent or prohibit transitional housing or permanent supportive housing, it was really kind of unclear how it really was going to affect Centralia. And this is the perfect example of how it is affecting Centralia when you have an investment group that buys like Motel 6 and the city council approved it on August 20th, 2022 to convert it to permanent supportive housing. And of course, if you look at all the rules around permanent supportive housing, there are a lot of requirements and stuff. And, you know, there are subsidized apartments and there's a lot of stipulations, which means it's not real, I guess, from a business model, profitable. And so it does affect the city, but even taking one motel offline greatly affects the revenue that's generated by that lodging tax that many area organizations and nonprofits benefit from, and including the bond payments that the city has. On July 25th, 2023, you were presented with this lodging tax update. And looking at those numbers, it's astounding. Tens of thousands of dollars that is lost by the city in terms of that lodging tax because these motels are taken offline. The Motel 6 was the second leading producer of this tax revenue. And I heard it tonight there with the OYO being offline. That's 205 units that are taken offline. And it's concerning to me that the city already has an extreme shortage of hotels and motels, at which is evident there when you have major sports events. We got a big, beautiful sports complex, and people are going south and people are going north to stay, and they're taking their money with them. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there others in the chamber who'd like to speak on this topic? Mr. Markstrom and then Ms. Stapler.
Al Markstrom, City of Centralia resident. Again, this is a really big decision in front of the council on this zoning issue. A decision that will change the shape of our community for generations to come. The applicant talked about the two properties that they currently own. You know, if this zoning change were to happen, there's 3 other properties that will be affected. Talked about market saturation, but it needs to be assumed that those properties would also become housing. And those are prime pieces of real estate that front the only freeway exit that this community has. That is commercial property that has been zoned commercial for a very long time, and we will never get another opportunity to have that commercial property on freeway frontage on the only exit in Centralia if it's converted to housing. Housing is the biggest topic I think anybody talks about nowadays, whether it's the schools, businesses, cities, counties. Housing is super important to all of us, but it's important to recognize that it needs to happen in the right places. And I think converting all of the hotels on the Harrison corridor into housing is putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. I think it would be a huge disservice to this community for generations to come to convert all of that. You're talking about a C2 zone that's already very small, and you're going to convert 5 major properties in that zone. The applicant talked about naivety in his purchase of those properties. I looked them up. Looks like they're invested about 11 million in those 2 properties. I think it would be naive for us to believe that that is naivety. Investing $11 million in property that was zoned very specifically, and the applicant not understanding that zoning. So I think that's really important to note. We are also not a large community like Olympia or Tacoma or some of the other places that these projects have taken place, where hotels that are on the outskirts of a community can be converted for other uses. And I think it doesn't impact a community as greatly, where here you're talking about our core commercial zone. We have outlets that are very, very successful. We have restaurants, we have service stations, we have sports complexes, we have schools close by that all rely on being able to move through that corridor efficiently. And we would be talking about adding hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of residents right in our prime commercial area. I think another really important point to make is if this zoning were to be approved, the applicant has talked about holding these long-term, but there's nothing binding him to hold these long-term, and he could choose to sell them to anybody of his liking in any period of time. And they could be bought by a nonprofit group. And it would be feasible to think that all 5 of these properties could end up off of the tax rolls as well. So I think that's a huge consideration when it comes to this zoning, that while we can't always expect the worst case scenario, we certainly need to understand what the worst case scenario could look like. And that could certainly be plausible. We have a large amount of housing in our community that is already owned by nonprofit groups. And so I don't think it's out of the realm to think that these could not also be acquired by those same groups down the road and taken off the tax rolls. Things for you to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Stabler.
Me yet? So when the state mandated allowing permanent supportive housing in the C3 zone or wherever hotels were allowed, they did so because they recognized there was a great need and that those areas were well suited for this type of housing. Permanent supportive housing is a very particular kind of housing that's designed for individuals seeking to live independently, but for any number of reasons need assistance, perhaps temporarily and perhaps indefinitely. The resources provided in the units run from helping residents manage finances to shopping for food to getting out for a job interview or vocational training. Often it's a bridge to help someone to get out on their own and have their own apartment or house. And sometimes it's the only thing that's keeping them off the street. And we all know how critical that is in our community. We need all kinds and all levels of housing in Centralia. We need to make sure we have permanent supportive housing where it is well suited. And I applaud the council for doing that. And then move on to building other housing in other locations. I would love an investment firm like Sage to come in and purchase some property, maybe not the lowest value property and build the kind of housing that they're capable of building. That would be awesome. But we need to keep the permanent supportive housing where it's appropriate. And I guess I just want to add to the comment that we'll never see these motels go back to motels. I disagree. If you go to big cities and small towns all over the place, there are some really cool converted motels. The boutique hotel that we have in our downtown, the Olympic Club, has been a game changer for our town. Think what Oyo could be, or one of those hotels, as a really cool, trendy motel that attracts visitors to come to our town and brings us back some of our lodging tax dollars. We cannot lose that opportunity. Let's have the diversity. I am against this rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the chamber who'd like to speak? All right, I'm going to move to the virtual setting, and I see that Mija Hanlon has her hand raised. So we'll start with you, Ms. Hanlon. Let's unmute, and then if there's others that would like to speak, please put your hand up now so we can get to you.
Thank you, council members. Mija Hanlon, West Chehalis resident, Hart in Centralia, as I have family, friends, and coworkers that live in beautiful Centralia. The Centralia downtown district is 10 blocks long and 2 blocks wide. Harrison Avenue is the main vein going through Centralia and a vital economic thoroughfare. When these difficult things to do and not often cost effective. We are also very well aware that the loss of the lodging tax, which Councilmember Voigt pointed out previously, is a big hit to a city. So when the idea of other hotels being purchased and transitioned came up for debate, me as a community member, because we knew that wasn't going to happen. We are a small community with strong ties, and we need people who understand that we are not naive. We know when people come in and purchase off-market and undervalued properties under a specific code and then utilize that to ask for a variance without providing what the market rate rent is actually going to be per unit and how many units will go back on the tax roll, that's confusing on purpose. I understand Sage Investment wants to be a family company and wants to put roots down in many communities. If they'd like to do that here, I'm hoping they would look at a plan that does involve the community more and asks that permanent supportive housing or transition housing be done in a way that doesn't affect all of the tax rolls for lodging. Motel 6 was a huge loss for taxes for the city of Centralia. Transitional housing would be a great gain. However, that needs to happen instead of market rate, which a single mom with 2 kids lives in a studio apartment in Chehalis right now, paying $1,400 a month. She is struggling to get by. Market rate does not help us right now with these properties. So I ask you to strongly consider what is being approved or asked to be approved tonight and look at the big picture, which is beyond 2 to 3 years of an investment.
Thank to all of the motions and voting. This is your opportunity, councilors, to share your own perspective and point of view on this particular topic.
Excuse me, Mayor. I'd like to just pass out, this is Amy. I'd like to pass out a new sheet that helps you track your motions because I noticed a typo. So please use this.
Thank you. We'll take them one at a time. But first we'll do Yeah, this will be at the end, but first we'll do discussion on this item and then we'll move to voting. So discussion is, our opportunity to share with one another our own thoughts on this, how we might be leaning, et cetera, prior to asking for a motion. And it's an opportunity to persuade one another as well, if that's what you'd like to do. So is there anyone who would like to speak? Mayor Pro Tem McGee?
Start us off. I guess first and foremost, I'm going to say that I feel like this is not the appropriate time for us to be looking at a zoning change this large. This should be something that we do with our comprehensive plan update that we're going to be working on over the next year and a half. So we can look at the city holistically and not base it on. I know it's difficult to not base this off of a project when there are specific projects here, but this is something that we need to take into account everywhere, not just in our city. If we're looking at adding residences into commercial zones, is something that we should look at all of our commercial zoning and all of those things and decide those at that time. That said, I am not for converting these into market rate housing. I have a number of concerns, not with the project, just with the locations, with the parking, with the fact that our LTAC, we don't have enough to distribute this year or may not have enough to distribute this year. If those other three go, you can guarantee we probably won't have enough to pay our bonds for the sports complex and those things that we have leveraged our LTAC for, which is going to put us in a negative position or has the potential to put us in a negative position. And yes, we are getting new hotels. We got La Quinta, but we had to lease them a portion of land to make sure that that footprint made sense for that facility, because those chain hotels come in and they have a blueprint that fits one spot. And we don't have a lot of land that doesn't flood, that is in proper locations to where we're going to attract those hotels. Chehalis is attracting those hotels. Grand Mound is attracting those hotels. So removing the potentially removing 5 hotels or motels from our tax rolls for the LTAC and just leaving La Quinta, and with one of them burning down. We've got La Quinta, Peppermill, Lakeside, and that's got to cover our entire bond for, which is how much for let me know off the top of the head how much it is for our bond that we have to pay. Okay, and are we going to clear that this year, do you think?
So, based off of current collections through the month of September, we've brought in $109,011. And I'm projecting that by the end of the year, we will be at $147,000, which is $56,000 below what we had budgeted to bring in this year.
Okay, so we're going to barely cover our bond this year with the hotels that we have currently.
Yes, but we also had contracts with nonprofits, so we'll have to dip into fund balance to cover the difference.
Okay.
We did have $200,000 between bond payments and contracts.
Okay, thank you. So LTAC is already an issue, and we, again, with the station, we may get another hotel, but replacing all of the value that we've lost there. And we built the sports complex as a part to bring people to our community, so they would stay here, spend their money here, be in our community, and that's antithetical to that. I'll pause there. I'll let other people talk for a minute.
Thank you. Other comments? All right, Councilor Vogt.
So I want to say some facts here, and Emil, if I'm wrong, correct me. First of all, those 2 motels that Norm was talking about are no longer motels. I doubt they're going to ever be motels unless somebody bought them from you with all the money you've already put into them and turned them into motels. It's possible, I guess. But they're gone. There's no use talking about, oh, well, LTAC isn't that bad. That ship is already sailed. This also would not change the amount of permanent supportive housing we can have in this zone, because according to our zoning and with a buffer, there can be 2 out of the 5 hotels. So that still leaves these two units, these 2 market rate units. There could still be 2 permanent supportive housing. No?
No, with your 1,500-foot buffer, let's say Quality Inn, Centralia Inn, and King Oscar, only one of them, because if there was one of those others tried to turn into PSH, the 1,500-foot buffer would take the other 2 hotels out. So only one of them could become if these 2 became market rate.
Right. Which I think is probably plenty for what we have in my estimation of what's going on. So an LTAC doesn't have to be a part of this because motels will always be able to be there. There's no buffer or no limit on motels. We're not stopping any motels. These two are maybe gone, but we're not stopping the other motels from keeping to be motels. Since now you're saying there is only one permanent supportive housing. And if we put a buffer on this, there will be no more of these either. So the rest could be all motels. And there goes that brings back your LTAC. I also want to say that I really think this is the future. Old hotels are being sold for housing. It's a great use for these old hotels because they're attracting a criminal element when you have hotels that as soon as people come in there that are trying to use the system by cramming a lot of people in a room and doing drugs and stuff, the values just go down. The police can probably tell you about some problems we've had at Oyo Hotel. It was hard to keep that safe. So I don't think if we add a buffer with this, I don't think it's going to change permanent supportive housing. I mean, there might be one. There would only be two of these, and the rest can be motels. And I think variety is really important. It's just we have to have this range of rates or rent is needed. It's needed too. We can't forget our poor working people who at this level can afford $1,000 a month. There's a lot of them, and single people or a couple who are both working. This is a need we have. So I support this because I like the variety of having all three. And it's market rate, so it's not going to go up tremendously because it's a 250 square foot apartment, the ones at Motel 6. And what about OU? What's the square footage? 350. They're not going to skyrocket. You can't. And if they do, it's market rate. I mean, everything else is going to go up with that. I mean, it's based on the market. If you have a 350 square foot apartment, you're not going to charge $2,000 for that. And if you are, that's just the way it is. That's the market. So I support it. I think it's a great idea. I've seen what they do. It's a part of the solution. It's not the solution. It would not all be, if we put a buffer on it, would not all be market rate apartments. It would not all be permanent supportive housing, but it could be whatever's left can be motels because that's not strict. Did I say anything incorrect?
I corrected you on the one.
Thank you. Other counselors? Counselor Cameron?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm a kind of person that I don't like to go back in my word. And as we previously said, Motel 6, we approved that for a permanent supportive housing. I would like to see that go forth for the Motel 6 and the consideration of the other hotels to go forth as market rate housing. I also know, and I've met with Pastor Mark McHugh, and I am also aware that they are looking at a housing project there, potentially pallet housing. So that's kind of something that they'd like to look into moving forward with. So we have to consider the distance between Motel 6 and there for some future potential there. So I see that there's a need for some amendment. Maybe holding off. Kelly, you suggested holding off to this housing is finalized, the housing plan. When would that be?
The periodic update of the comprehensive plan will have a public component and a fairly robust process throughout most of next year. And then we will adopt that in October-ish of next year.
June of 2025.
June of 2020. It'll be a
That
little.
is your deadline. It
And
will
that's
not be before then.
quite a ways out there. So, yeah. So approximately, I think I'd like to ask Ms. Howard if you could step up a minute.
I'll allow it. Public comments technically closed.
Oh, sorry.
Since you're making a request.
Thank you. Patty, the reason I asked you up is, and I'm not asking you for an actual figure. And I am very aware that there's certain criteria present that really demands other sort of care needs, and that is more social for the state for mental health and to deliver other sort of solutions to care for our mentally ill. So what would you say is an estimate of people, just an estimate, Patty? No names, no anything asked. What would you say is the estimate of the need for housing? And Centralia, as we see, are we servicing the entire county here, Lewis County?
Oh, goodness. I'll give you the short answer. The need is great for the very low income, no income to low income. Here in Centralia, I mean, we talk about Washington Park, we talk about the night by night shelter, we talk about people standing and flying a sign on the freeway. I mean, you see those folks, right? They need a place to be. Could a really robust permanent supportive housing complex draw people from other parts of the county who also need a place to live? Yes. Would they choose to live in Centralia? I don't know. But we certainly need something with wraparound services. Yes, mental health. Yes, substance use disorder, services for those in poverty, services for children. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but
what's the estimated number for here in Centralia? Because that's really what our jurisdiction is.
I'm going to say 75.
Okay. So would the Motel 6 meet those needs for 75 persons?
Yes. And that's probably a low figure, but that's mine. I'm conservative.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. And that would leave you with a few more. I believe, Mr. Hubbard, the Motel 6 is 120. Is that correct? 124.
Are you finished with your comments? Or
yes, I think so. I'm just mulling it through in my head.
All right.
Trying to meet the need, trying to create the balance. We obviously want to improve our community. We need tax revenue. We have to think about all of that to try and create a balance to meet all the needs. And try and not put yourself in a personal situation, but we have to serve a whole entire community here. These are tough decisions. Sometimes we can work, if we are open to imperfections. Sometimes we can work towards making things better and improving and learning from those. So I would hope that we get balance, and that's not to be scoffed at. You have heard all the needs. We do need housing at a decent rental rate. And that's so critical because our living wages here in Centralia are exceptionally low. And we have warehouses. As such, the income is not specifically very high. So we do need employment with a higher livable wage. And so therefore, we can't get blood out of a stone when people don't have a huge income. And, $1,000 an apartment is huge in my opinion. And we certainly need to consider that too. And I think I love the idea of building communities. And I feel that this Sage Investments, when I went out and did the field trip, I felt that they really had that goal in mind. And for mental health, the recreation that's offered there, so people don't just hide in their little cave. There's an opportunity to live a healthy life there. So it's just weighing all the balance. Mayor.
I was going to just offer other people a chance to speak, and then we could come back for some additional thoughts
Sure,
if you have
thank
them.
you.
Is there anyone, I know Mayor Pro Tem McGee wants to speak, but anyone who has not yet? Councilor Wesley?
Thank you, Mayor. It's past my bedtime, so I'll be brief. I do appreciate the fact that you identify yourself as a capitalist, and I greatly respect that. I will start out my comments by saying that I'm definitely against the zoning change for a couple of reasons. I won't repeat all the comments that Mayor Pro Tem McGee made that I'm in agreement with, especially with the pending comprehensive plan. I'll focus on two items here. Number one, and it was mentioned several times this evening, we don't know or predict the future. And by passing this, it definitely opens the door for who knows what to happen and provides for the potential that all 5 of those motels and properties could become something else. Right in the heart, and it's been mentioned, right in the heart of a really small C1, C2 district that we have, commercial zone, and who knows what the future is going to bring with growth in those areas. So just on the fact that the unknown kind of scares me, and the potential that this door would open greatly concerns me. The second one is, after spending 20 plus years of my career working for the Centralias School District and seeing students in my classroom, in buildings, in my children's classrooms as classmates who are identified as McKinney-Vento students who had no place to live and were showing up for school every day. I definitely have a vision of the population that currently exists that we need to provide these services for. So when this was first proposed as PSH, I was elated because, and I do hear the comment that don't build any more low income. It's just going to attract more people and it will continue to impoverish our area. And I would like to debunk that myth by saying those people are already here and we're not serving them. Dr. Grant is in the office, in the audience, and could maybe give us an idea of the number of students. If she knows the number off the top of her head, I won't put you out of 200 students currently exist in the Centralias School District that identify as McKinney-Vento. Is that correct? Okay. So there's a large population right there that we identified, and Councilwoman Cameron talked about not going back on our word. We approved a project that I'm sure if those people had heard about it and are following things and knew about it, were probably elated, thinking that finally we're being recognized, our need is being addressed, and I could just imagine, I can close my eyes and see those students who sat in my classroom. So for those two main reasons, and I guess I wasn't keeping brief because now my alarm's going off that I'm way past my bedtime. But I will leave it at that and just reiterate at this point in time, I'm not for the proposed change to zoning.
Councilor Althauser?
So, first of all, looking at this, yes, it is very beautiful. I love seeing things restored. That's absolutely wonderful. But I do feel like, and I feel like there was a bit of a lack of transparency potentially. That's my gut feeling. It felt like we got in here we're getting in here and then we're going to say this, and potentially at least looking at other projects that maybe we're going to do something totally different. So that kind of hits a little wrong. But looking at our community, the needs, the lodging tax needs, people's needs, I think we should wait to look at our comprehensive study and get public feedback, make sure we're making wise decisions for our future. Currently, the state of, at least what I hear people visiting that are going to the sports hub, our hotels are not meeting their families' needs. But hopefully there is potential for things being restored and cleaned up to where we can meet people's needs. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at tonight.
Thank you. Councilor Garvey?
Something that I had in my mind since yesterday is, around my brain. I've been doing some outreach in the community. And then I have these two people yesterday. I was in these apartments, and these guy came, and then he was almost in tears. And he says that the apartment that where he's living in, it was they were low income apartments, not anymore. He says that the rent jumped for him $450 in 1 month. And so and I saw the family that he was moving with kids, but they didn't have a house. And they were moving out because they didn't have a place. I mean, they didn't have the money to afford, because and not only him, I went to another lady, and that's a Hispanic family, and they share the same thing. And so her husband is 67, and he's still working because there is no way that they can afford with just the money that they're receiving from the Social Security. And so this person is like, it's not the Centralia that we used to live. This is crazy. This is, he was in tears. He says, I don't know for how long I'm going to be able to stay here. And I cannot even imagine how that feels. I went home and I was just thinking, like, when is going to be that, or when I will be in that situation. And I was very sad. And I hope that all together we can just come up with the best solution for everyone. I don't know how we're going to do it, but somehow we can do it.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem McGee.
Emil, how do you have the housing study in front of you still?
Say what?
Do you have the housing study in front of you still?
I do.
Not
the whole thing, but
the percentages of how many units do we need in the below 30% AMR?
Sure. And remember, this is for a 20-year time frame. But it's also broken down based off of rentals. Okay. So I'm going to kind of give you a couple of different numbers that you can take into consideration. So, the first one is just dealing with apartments. This is apartments only, okay? So what they're saying, what did the chart said, and this is on page 38 in Appendix A. It said of the below 30% AMI, we need 326 units. And that's over that from now till 2025. And I'm glad we're not Chehalis, because Chehalis has a whole lot more than this for those in the audience. So you already have 195 surplus of 30 to 50, and you have 850 surplus of 50 to 80. And then you need above 80%, 865. Okay. Now let's go to the total numbers. Okay. If you go below, and this is as of the current number of units, as well as what we need, including our UGA. Okay. So you're looking at 729 housing target for 2045. You need 140, 30 to 50. 50 to 80, we have a surplus of 400. 80 to 100, we have a deficit of 101. And then 100 to plus, we'll just say 100 plus, you need about 2,000 units.
Okay.
And that's as per page 43 in the housing study. So one of the things, as I was sitting there listening to everybody's comments, there are options. And I think Councilor Garibay kind of just really made me think that there's options, and there is. Because I absolutely agree that, just because you bought something in, you thought you could convert it and do this or that. Hey, too bad, so sad. The code was that you had to do PSH housing or transitional. But what you can do is there is some uniqueness about this project or about this request and where the hotels are located at. For example, you do have I-5 in the middle, and there's one hotel on one side. There's 4 on the other side, which is unique. You can also look at buffers. I think Max has mentioned that. And you can also just say, hey, you know what? We're waiting until the comp plan. There's lots of different options to look at this. And so when you contemplate, kind of look at the whole thing. You can wait, and they can. Oyo hasn't really started any conversion yet. Motel 6 has. It is very difficult to go back from what it is currently to a hotel. Motel 6 would be very difficult. So,
thank you. I would also like to point out that we are supposed to be looking at this holistically as not by a project. So as any developer comes in, for example, when the other project we approved tonight, the 86 units on Kresge Landing, when they originally came to us and requested an R20, it was a different developer. And what they talked to us about doing was senior housing.
Yep.
And that we're going to add a bunch of units to senior housing. And they sold it to a different developer, and we're getting 86 townhomes that are not senior housing and duplexes. So just because, again, he's, as Mr. Hubbard said, he's going to sell it within 5 years, hopefully, sometime within that. We have no guarantee that the community that you two or you three saw at the facilities he currently has is going to be maintained. We don't know that they will keep the courts. We don't know that they keep the barbecue pits. We don't know that they won't just make it as efficient and as possible. We have no idea. It could be great, and it could be an easy transition and do those things, but it's not something that we can just bank on, because those properties will not be with Mr. Hubbard for that period of time. Trusting that Mr. Hubbard is going to do as he says he's going to do. I think this will be my last comment here, is that we should wait until we do the housing comprehensive plan, so we can look through this as a city, as the entire city, talk about where, if we do want to put residences into commercial areas, how we want that to look, and we should move forward at that time.
I'm going to take a moment to make some comments and then open it back up to council. Of course, want to give opportunity for everybody to speak their mind, but as the hour progresses, being as brief as possible would be appreciated. I do not support this text change amendment for a couple of reasons. One of which is, just as several of us have talked about, I think something as significant and fundamental a change to a zone should happen as part of the robust public engagement overall periodic update. And we have that coming up. This is prime commercial property right off of our freeway. And if you were to have asked me outside of House Bill 1220 or a specific request, if we should put multifamily dwellings right there, I would say absolutely not. It does not help the interests of our community. The second reason for in that area, the second reason is we all drive Harrison, and I simply don't see how we can support the additional traffic that would happen there. I think market rate housing would produce the most trips. PSH obviously produces more than motel, hotel, but PSH, we also have a buffer in there. And this would not trigger a traffic mitigation action. And our community members would be outraged if we allowed Harrison to get worse than it is today. I'm concerned about the market rate and what that would look like and whether it does address a need. I am positive that we need PSH. Shelter is, of course, there for triage. It deals with an immediate situation where somebody doesn't have shelter that night. What happens after that is we have a cliff in our housing pipeline where there is very few resources for folks who get into a shelter and then want to progress into a stable housing environment. That's exactly what permanent supportive housing is intended to do. It gets people housing ready. And one of the most common concerns I have as we're talking with people in our community is how do we help the homeless people that we see in our community all the time who don't have anywhere to go and they're not ready for an apartment. They don't have the skills or the support. That's what PSH is intended to do. And we have a severe need for that right now if we want to address the homeless issue that's in our community. I'm concerned about the amount of PSH. This is not what I would have liked to have seen happen in that zone anyway, but the state took that decision out of our hands. And so I am supportive of keeping it as the state has determined. And if we want to explore residential market rate housing, to do that as part of the comprehensive plan. I think I'll pause there and see if there's a round two from any of us. Councilor Vogt.
I have a question and a comment. I have a question for you, Ross. And you don't have to answer this. You're not under oath. You're a developer. You can do what you want with your property. Is there a possibility if this doesn't pass that you would sell the property, that you won't want to continue? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I will not sell the properties, and I will absolutely conform to the standards of PSH. So that's required. And I respect and will put you in direct contact with my leadership to ensure that any issues that are passed along to you are immediately addressed. But I doubt there would be any.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to comment, I like the idea of at least postponing this to more of a comprehensive plan discussion, because there's a lot of emotion in this discussion. And I think this is not good to make decisions like this based on a lot of emotion. Because it doesn't matter if it's you or it doesn't matter if it's somebody else. We're talking about the future and what the zoning should be overall. And I just think intellectually it's best to have variety. That type of housing, which wouldn't have been 2 years ago, but it's now all happening all over the country, as well as permanent supportive housing, as well as hotels or motels would be great. So I think there's going to be comments, a lot of other pushback from the community. If you say, Oyo Hotel is going to be permanent supportive housing right there in our gateway where everybody drives in our town, you're going to have some pushback from the community, because that's what people have been telling me. Please don't do this to our gateway. So there are other opinions we need to hear besides us. We have a whole city of people who have opinions about this. So I think it'd be great to postpone this whole vote until when we're less emotional, there's more community voices talking than just us talking heads who are educated about this kind of stuff. And that's my opinion. Thank you for answering that question.
Other comments, Councilor Cameron?
I'll try and be quick.
All right.
So, some of the issues that I see that are really real issues is I need to focus on Centralia and Centralia's housing issues and the people who are homeless in Centralia. We have no power or authority over the other cities or what the government is doing in Olympia, but we have control over making the best decisions that we can make. Some requirements are determined what we do by the state, of course. Let me just make that clear. But I think it's important to address the Motel 6 that was passed by our city council as a PSH. I think it's important to put your money where your mouth is on that decision. And I would like to see a mix of some housing. Councilor Garibay shared with me on her community outreach recently. There were families of 2 and 3 living together in overcrowded conditions. This becomes a public health issue when people are living cramped like that and afford rent, space out, and live a healthier quality of life. I think I agree with the Councilor Vogt, and to some extent, all the councillors make very valid points. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for your input on that. I think it would be best, and it's not an avoidance, it's just trying to deal with reality of what we have here. I am confident that new hotel coming in will build up the L tax again. And I am confident that we can have tax revenue that we very much need. Tax revenue.
Councilor Cameron, can you switch to Councilor Althauser's mic?
Yeah.
We need to fix yours.
Oh. Probably worn out tonight. I'm very confident that we can, we need that tax revenue. We can only do so much charity because we don't have a lot of revenue and livable wages here. And we're trying to create balance all across the board with property taxes and every other kind of tax. We have got a lot to work with here at the city. And and we have exceptional staff that are delivering some quality work for us on our behalf to help us make our decisions. So I don't take light any of these decisions on housing. There's a critical need for housing of all types here, and I don't want to put off any potential developer. Or as well, it's important to build relationships and to have a good welcome to Centralia as well. We need those. We need that business coming in. We need people spending money in our shops in our downtown area. So how do we all make that happen? You know. So these are my concerns, and I think best to I'm more leaning towards putting this off to the housing committee plan. I think that would be the best and wisest decision. The best and wisest decision to make. And again, we can only focus on Centralia, Lewis County. You all need to step up to the plate, and so does Olympia need to step up to the plate. We can only do so much for Centralia. Thank you.
All right, I do want to move us toward voting. Are there other burning comments that you all need to make before we initiate our voting process? All right, then, counselors, this is complicated. Everybody find your sheet with the red fixing a typo header. We are going to take these one by one. It's probably been 2 hours since we started, so test of our short-term memory.
Did you need me to go back over those?
No. Jonathan, if you could start turning off all the mics, I would appreciate it. All right, we are going to start with item number 1, which was sections 1 through 9, page 1 and 2, I believe, in your packet of definitions. Is there a motion on that item?
I move to approve item 1, sections 1 through 9 as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And please raise your hand tonight for voting. Item 2, section 10, page 3 through 5, the residential table. Is there a motion on this item?
I move to approve item 2, section 10.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item 3, sections 12 through 17, residential zoning districts, page 6 through 8.
Would like to include on this one the conditional use permit.
All right, so would you like to make a motion?
That's for, I think that's for this next section, I believe.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm ahead of myself.
No worries.
Right.
I move to approve item 3, sections 12 through 17 as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item number 4, sections 18 through 20, C3 downtown zone, page 9 through 11.
And that would be it. I would like a consideration of a motion for the to include the conditional use permit for the downtown zone.
Is it for the whole thing or that specific?
I think, yeah, let's work together on this because I think what you're wanting to do is 20.24.020B4.
Oh, good
You want
Lord.
to add a conditional use permit.
Yeah, you go ahead. I'm getting tired.
I move to amend section 18, 20.24020, section B, section 4, to include the 15 dwelling units above the first floor with a conditional use permit.
Second.
Can I make some clarification on that one? So what will happen is with that motion, which is fine, what you were going to do is we're going to have the city attorney add in the conditional use portion that multifamily requirement also. So that'll be actually added to the other one to also say in the downtown district, 15 units or more can be on the ground floor, and then it'll refer you to 2024. Okay.
Yep. Perfect.
Okay.
And remember, this is first reading, so those changes will come back to us for second reading. All right, so there was a motion. Was there a second?
Yes.
Yeah.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
And then I move to approve item 4, sections 18 to 20 as amended.
Second.
I thought that's what we just voted on.
Vote on the amendment. We approved the amendment, but then didn't approve the motion.
All right, we can vote again. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, item number 5, section 21, plan unit developments, page 12.
I move to approve item 5, section 21.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Item number 6, sections 22 through 25 on townhomes, page 13 through 16.
I move to approve item 6, sections 22 through 25.
Second.
Second. Right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Item number 7, section 26, conditional use permits, page 17.
And this is the one I'd like to move to postpone until we're working on our comp plan. Do I need to set a specific date for that, or can I just say until we're working through our comp plan amendments? Okay. I move to postpone item 7, section 26, until we are working on our comprehensive plan next year.
Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
Lord.
Item number 8, section 27, parking, page 19.
I move to approve item number 8, section 27, as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Item number 9, section 11, the commercial table, page 4 in your packet.
Do I need to break this up for the other pieces?
Yeah, yes.
How would you?
I would just remove the apartments.
The hotel motel conversions?
Yes.
Okay.
And just strike it.
I moved to strike out hotel motel conversion to multiple family dwelling for buildings constructed prior to 2023.
Until.
So may I offer that you're making a motion to approve all of that with the strikeout of that piece?
Yes.
Yeah, and I would not postpone it to a certain date. If it wants to come back, it'll come back either with staff or with somebody applying.
Okay.
Because it's not a date specific.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
I move to approve item number 9, section 11, with hotel motel conversion to multiple family dwelling for buildings constructed prior to 2023 being stricken.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. I feel like we should have gold stars or dessert for that effort. Thank you, everyone. That was complicated. I think that concludes agenda item 7.
Wait, Kyle, don't we need a motion now to approve the ordinance overall?
Now we need to do the whole thing all together.
Hell's bell.
Yes.
All right. So I am seeking a motion to approve the ordinance overall as we have just amended with those items.
I move to approve on first reading as amended ordinance 2539.
Second.
So we removed the permanent supportive housing conversion thing. So now we're voting on that without it? Or we already
We're
voted
voting
that
on
without it?
all of it.
Well, what happened to the one we took out? That we struck?
It's all of our everything that we went through in the adaptions. We're voting on the whole package that we just went through that we're like good with the changes we made and everything.
The one that we struck from the record, we'll said we can come back whenever it makes sense, or with the comp plan.
Oh, and that is the
hotel motel conversions.
Yeah, that will be
Okay, that's what I thought. I wanted to be
conditional
clear.
use for the commercial is being removed. We've amended the C3 downtown zone. So now you're voting all of those amendments.
So Kelly, just a comment for you. I understand that the night by night shelter is still waiting on permit and it's probably going to be 2024. Sometime it may be as much as a year out before that's ready.
I want to pause because this is not one of the things that we noticed on our agenda.
Right.
So I don't believe we can discuss that.
Yeah.
tonight.
Okay. Well, what my consideration is the desperate need for permanent supportive housing. Can we go ahead with the Motel 6?
So the motion that we've made and approved as it stands would leave the zoning as it has been, which approves permanent supportive housing use.
Yeah.
So the Motel 6 would be able
Just
to
be
proceed
clear
that
on
way.
Thank you for being clear on that.
All right. So council, what we've just done is we've taken all of these items and all of these sections, and we have agreed together collectively on what to amend, remove, etc. So now I'm seeking a motion to treat all of this as a single ordinance on first reading.
So I still don't understand what happened to the hotel motels and conversion. Postponing it?
We approved that item as written with that being struck out so that conversion would not be permitted and it could come back to council at a future date.
Okay. I guess I would have voted no had I known that, but okay. Sorry.
Okay.
When it changed name. I'm in the minority, so.
All right. So is there a motion on the ordinance?
I move to approve on first reading with the amendments as voted on to approve ordinance 2539. Amendments to Municipal Code Title 20.
Second.
So if you feel strongly, you could vote no here.
Would you please explain exactly what we're voting on and what we're taking out?
Exactly what we are voting on is if you look at our sheet, we are voting on item 1 to accept as written, item 2, accept as written, item 3, an amendment, conditional use, item 4 through 7, accept as written, item 8, remove, And item 9, accept as written, except remove the permitted conversion to fair market housing.
So basically voting against that.
That's
Not just removing it, we're voting against it by removing it.
yes,
Okay.
essentially. So if any of you disagree with any of these things, you could vote no on the overall ordinance to register that disagreement.
Okay.
But we do have a motion on the table to accept the ordinance, approve the ordinance with these changes, and we have a second. So I am about to seek a vote on that. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
All right, the ordinance passes on first reading with a vote of 6-1. And for people keeping score at home, we will be bringing this back in the next council meeting for a second reading, which is our standard practice. Now, will all the powers that be agree that we have finished with this agenda item? All right. So back to our agenda. The last thing on our agenda are council reports, and I'm actually going to make a request of council if you don't have a burning issue to please skip your report this evening. It's after 11 o'clock, but I will go one by one and give you all that opportunity. Councilor Garibay?
No reports.
Thank you. Councilor Wesley?
No report.
Councilor Vogt?
I yield, no report.
Thank you. Councilor Althauser?
No report.
Councilor Cameron? Mayor Pro Tem McGee?
Nothing to report.
I have no report. Council is adjourned. Thank you all.
Goodness gracious.
3 hours exactly.